I get off the school bus and every day 4:30 I'd watch 3 hours of Nitro, between 2 and 3 hours of Nitro just for Sting's matches with Diamond Dallas Page, Ric Flair, Goldberg, Bret Hart. They could be U.S. Championship matches or they could just be a promo Sting would drop or a WCW Championship match. I just wanted to see what was going to happen week after week for Sting, and that's why I always made a consistent habit of watching World Championship Wrestling. I've spoken to so many wrestling fans about how I was the biggest Sting fan in the world, and even more so an Undertaker fan, because the majority of the time that I had when I was a teenager I spent watching WWE for the Attitude Era, and even what they called the Cartoon Era in the early 90s through the mid 90s. I always watched The Undertaker because I thought that Sting and The Undertaker were two of the definitive icons, and with how Sting was referred to as WCW's Undertaker by so many wrestling fans, it was just so fun watching the two of them, do what they did for the respective companies and the respective brands, and I just think this match really needs to happen with how the comparison between Sting and The Undertaker has always come up in conversations, and we have seen so many dream matches been derived from so many wrestling fans' predictions over the years, and we have so many wrestling dream matches that we'll probably see ever before Sting versus The Undertaker happens. I would go as far to say that CM Punk versus Stone Cold Steve Austin or something of that magnitude would happen before Sting versus The Undertaker, and with how fans chanted Undertaker Sting post WrestleMania, I think that this match is one obviously wrestling fans want to see. If you ask the everyday wrestling fan what match you want to see in the way of a dream match, the obvious answer and conclusion to be drawn is The Undertaker versus Sting, and it has everything to do with just how much of a magnitude this match brings forth, with how much of a conversation we have heard about this match. This match's conversation has been an all-time high, and the first opponent for Sting to have had should not have been Triple H. I really agree with the wrestling fans who believe that. Now, obviously, it had a lot to do with the animosity that had existed between Sting and Triple H for years, but to have Sting come in and lose his very first match on the biggest stage, at the biggest event you could have possibly lost at, WrestleMania, I mean, come on, Sting's a legend. He didn't deserve to come in and be treated the way he was. 6 months after that, become the number one contender of the championship on the same night Seth Rollins had to defend the U.S. title against John Cena. Sting and John Cena main event against Seth Rollins in a double main event, and Sting still loses. I mean, Sting should have rebounded off WrestleMania, if anything, and this neck injury obviously generating a lot of confliction and a lot of controversy, people saying Sting's career is over. But even with how Sting's going in the Hall of Fame, I still believe we haven't seen the last of Sting, and we will see him compete again. If not in WWE, we'll see him compete somewhere else, either in TNA again or on the independent level if it goes that far. But I still think there are so many names for Sting to create with, even so many names for The Undertaker still to create with, like Roman Reigns, for instance. What happened to the prediction of Roman Reigns versus The Undertaker? So many people making that prediction. So many people making predictions of CM Punk versus Stone Cold Steve Austin. So many opportunities here to create are still on the table, and especially there's an opportunity to create with The Undertaker and Sting, because I'm a really big fan of how this storyline would go because of their histories from their respective brands, all the moments and matches they have created with so many big names. Sting and The Undertaker, there really aren't names that they have not worked with from their same generation. Maybe not in this generation, but in the generation past, I mean, who have we not seen Sting and The Undertaker fight other than themselves? And I think these two icons being so loyal to their brands, this match needs to happen. And just imagine the cash flow that would be generated, the amount of subscribers we would get to the network, how many people would buy the pay-per-view, and how much conversation would be at an all-time high throughout social media. So many people would be throwing up news articles with predictions. So many people would be throwing up columns. So many people would be posting photos and videos of this match because everybody wants to see this match, and because it's been 15 years in the making, that's why I have chosen to talk about this match more than any other match that I could have chosen to talk about when referring to those dream matches that have either happened or have not happened. And you can talk about John Cena versus The Rock being one of the best storylines we have seen in a long time. No doubt it was. I was a really big fan of The Rock, was hoping The Rock was going to pull it off in their first match at WrestleMania 28 all the way back to 2012. Was really hoping he was going to come through. The Rock did. Sting didn't, unfortunately. But you can talk about John Cena versus The Rock as much as you want, but this is the match. This is the dream match that stands out amongst any dream match that could be talked about on a video blog or in a written column for a specific wrestling website. And so many people have just been a really big fan of this. It needs to happen. Conversation would be at an all-time high. It already is. And it hasn't even happened. People have even made their own graphics for this match, taking the logos of different events, throwing them together, cutting and pasting photos of The Undertaker and Sting which I really respect, because wrestling fans, like I've said so many times, and it'll sound like I'm reiterating the same fact that I've been pointing out over the last number of months, wrestling fans are some of the most smartest fans in the wrestling industry who are never given enough credit. Triple H can come out and shoot on you guys all he wants, shoot and shit all over you for not knowing as much as what you believe to know for the wrestling business. But when it comes down to it, at the end of the day, you guys know what you want. Taking it back to post-WrestleMania 31, the chance of Undertaker, you know what you wanted then when Sting came out at the conclusion of Raw, the first Raw, in the fall of the WrestleMania 31, and he had an interview with Renee Young saying he didn't know what the future had in store for him, but whatever WWE had in store for him throwing his way, he was going to reach out and grab, whether it be a Hall of Fame induction or another opponent for him to have. We didn't know it was going to be Seth Rollins versus Sting, and things were going to go the way that they did for Sting, but he deserved a lot better than what he got. A Hall of Fame induction is one thing, but a career-defining moment for Sting in WWE has yet to be witnessed, and this could be looked at as his career-defining moment when you're talking about a Hall of Fame induction, because who doesn't believe a Hall of Fame induction for whoever you're talking about? Stone Cold Steve Austin, Bret Hart, Shawn Michaels, Edge. They've all had career-defining moments. They're going in that Hall of Fame since 1993, with the first induction being Andre the Giant. But Sting needs that one career-defining moment to stand out amongst every other career-defining moment he's had. And I mean, what are you really going to do for Sting? Give him the WWE Championship by having him defeat Roman Reigns or Seth Rollins at whatever point Sting does it? The thing is, that's really not needable to happen for Sting, but it really does need to happen. It may not be needable to happen in the minds of a lot of wrestling fans, but it is in mine, because I think Sting coming into WWE and having done nothing, competed in maybe 3 matches, winning 1 in a tag team match with John Cena, making someone tap out the Scorpion Deathlock, who I believe was Seth Rollins, because they were promoting the Night of Champions match between Sting and Seth Rollins at the time for that tag team match, and putting him in a match against the Big Show where John Cena comes out and makes the same is nothing in comparison to losing in 2 major pay-per-view matches. He needs to win at a major pay-per-view, just as The Undertaker needs to have that one final match. And the obvious opponent to throw The Undertaker's way at this point would be Sting, because of their history they've had for the respective brands and never having gone head-to-head in the match at WrestleMania. Can you imagine them just going face-to-face in a ring and looking up at the WrestleMania sign? Just the bone-chilling moment that would be, and just how it would really be a definitive moment for every wrestling fan. The magnitude of this match, ladies and gentlemen, is off the charts. And I think this match needs to happen because of the magnitude being off the charts, just how so many wrestling fans have always managed to bring this up in conversation. So many people ask me, Jonathan Clarke, who do you think would win between Sting and The Undertaker? I don't have a definitive answer, but if Sting was going to win anywhere at any point in time, it would be at an event like WrestleMania where this match needs to happen. Let me stress that, because I think Sting needs to do this, because Sting has not won a match. And obviously The Undertaker's won more matches at WrestleMania than Sting has in his career. That's obvious. I mean, any idiot can figure that out. So if Sting was going to win anywhere, it would be in this match. So I'm going to go on record for saying my prediction for Sting versus The Undertaker, if it happens, even if it doesn't, would or would not be Sting. Because Sting is the man who needs to win this match because of not having a career-defining moment throughout his time spent in WWE. Yeah, he's done a lot of stuff for the network, and yeah, he's had a lot of things to do with WWE for a number of months now, but he has not had that career-defining moment, which he does need to get to. So my prediction for this match would be Sting. I'm not going to go with The Undertaker because he's had his fair share of career-defining moments in WWE, and he's always been the McMahon's favorite. I mean, Vince McMahon, more especially, has always played favorites with The Undertaker, because I know through that match with Brock Lesnar, after that match at WrestleMania 30 a number of years ago, he believed The Undertaker was done then. And Vince was so frustrated because he still had a few years left of The Undertaker under contract with WWE and still wanted to have that opportunity to create with The Undertaker when talking about new talent, new superstars in the way of Bray Wyatt, which obviously was followed through with. They took some time out for The Undertaker. They brought him back. They had his 25th anniversary. And now after 25 years, we've waited long enough. 25 years, 15 years on Sting and The Undertaker, 25 years between the two of them, just 25 for The Undertaker, 25 for Sting, and 15 of those 50 years we've waited on the Undertaker versus Sting match. So if it's going to happen, it needs to happen sometime within the next 1 to 2 years, with my prediction being Sting, because of the way things have gone for Sting over these last few months. And who's going to argue that with me? Just think about the wrestling psychology, if anything. If you think about anything for this match, just think about the wrestling psychology, the amount of people out there who respect these two, and just how awesome and incredible of a storyline we would see. Even if they teamed The Undertaker and Sting up just once, in a program against adversaries. Even if they worked together and we never did see Sting versus The Undertaker, or even if it's set up for Sting versus The Undertaker because Sting or The Undertaker would turn on the other in a tag team program. It would be awesome seeing them as tag team, and it would be awesome seeing them as tag team champions. There is so much of an opportunity here with Sting versus The Undertaker, so why doesn't WWE capitalize on it? I think it's because they get enjoyment out of torturing us as wrestling fans, and that's really what they are doing, wrestling fans who are listening to this show and who have subscribed to my show on YouTube at Jonathan Clarke 22. They are torturing us, and that's what it comes down to at the end of the day. By the time the smoke clears and the dust settles, they are torturing us, and they are getting utter enjoyment out of torturing us for not giving us Sting versus The Undertaker. They'll give us matches like The Undertaker versus Shane McMahon, I don't know, Sting versus Bo Dallas. If they had to give Sting an opponent and throw an opponent his way, they'll give us Sting versus Bo Dallas and The Undertaker versus Shane McMahon so many hundreds of times over, but they will deny us that opportunity all the time of seeing Sting versus The Undertaker. And why? Because they know we're smart when it comes to wrestling, understanding it and how it works. They know we know what we want, and because we want Sting versus The Undertaker, that's why they're not going to give it to us, and they're going to keep putting it off and putting it off and putting it off for so many years. And it wouldn't surprise me none if the match still hasn't happened by WrestleMania 33 or 34 sometime within the next 2 to 3 years. But I will say this, it needs to happen sometime within the next 2 to 3 years. Why it will not? Obviously, it's because it's the match we want. And we'll probably see CM Punk versus Stone Cold Steve Austin. That wouldn't surprise me if that happened, even with how Stone Cold Steve Austin is in horrible condition because of his knees and other injuries he's had throughout his career. Stone Cold Steve Austin giving us so much, it wouldn't surprise me none if Stone Cold Steve Austin versus CM Punk happened before this match ever did. Because again, it goes back to the fact that as wrestling fans, this is what we want. Post-WrestleMania 31 chants of Undertaker. Sting heard them because he acknowledged them. He acknowledged them before Renee Young did or any of the commentators did. They just stayed silent. And then all of a sudden Jerry Lawler says, "Do you hear that, Byron?" Because he heard it. He just wasn't allowed to reference having this match happen and the probability of it happening. But the probability of it happening, I think, is significantly higher than it ever was before. And it obviously has a lot to do with you as wrestling fans and me for always bringing up this issue, which I will continue to do until this match happens. It needs to fucking happen. And it needs to fucking happen now, sometime within the next 2 to 3 years, by at least WrestleMania 34. We need to see this match. Over 50 years between the two of them, 15 years waiting on it. If it's going to happen, it needs to happen.